Alright, everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to share something really important with you, how I learned English alone without a teacher. Yes, you heard it right, I didn't go to any special school. I didn't have any private tutor, and I didn't spend a lot of money on expensive courses. I learned English all by myself, and guess what? You can do it too. When I first started learning English, I was a little scared. I thought, can I really do this on my own? But over time, I realized that learning English alone is not only possible, but it can also be fun and exciting. You just need the right approach, some good resources, and a lot of practice. In this video, I'm going to tell you everything about my journey, how I started, what methods I used, and the challenges I faced. If you're trying to learn English by yourself, trust me, you're not alone. Many people around the world are doing it, and you can do it too. So stay with me until the end, because I'm going to share my best tips and experiences with you. Let's get started. Alright, let me tell you why I wanted to learn English. Learning English wasn't just something I thought about one day and decided to do. No, it was something I needed to do. English is everywhere. It's on the internet, in movies, in music, in books, almost everywhere you look, you can find English. I realized that if I wanted to improve my life, understand the world better, and have more opportunities, I had to learn English. At first, I didn't think English was important for me. I thought I could live my life without it. But slowly, I started to see how much I was missing. When I watched movies, I couldn't understand the dialogues without subtitles. When I listened to music, I could only enjoy the melody, but I had no idea what the lyrics meant. And when I wanted to read interesting books or articles online, most of them were in English. It was frustrating because I felt like I was limited. I wanted to be able to understand, to connect with people, and to enjoy the things I loved without depending on translations. One day, I had an experience that really changed my perspective. I remember watching an interview with one of my favorite celebrities. I was so excited to hear what they had to say, but the video didn't have subtitles. I could only understand a few words, and I felt disappointed. I realized that if I knew English, I wouldn't have to wait for subtitles or translations. I could understand everything on my own. That moment made me think, I have to do something about this. I want to understand English. Another reason I wanted to learn English was because of my career. I knew that if I wanted better job opportunities, English would help me a lot. Many companies prefer people who can speak English because it allows them to work with international clients and expand their business. I wanted to improve my skills and have more opportunities in the future. Even if I didn't plan to work in an English-speaking country, I knew that speaking English would open many doors for me. But it wasn't just about work. I also wanted to travel. I've always dreamed of visiting new places and meeting people from different countries. But I knew that without English, it would be difficult. English is an international language, and people from all over the world use it to communicate. Whether I traveled to Europe, Asia, or America, I knew that English would help me talk to people, ask for directions, and enjoy my trip without any problems. And of course, one of the biggest reasons I wanted to learn English was to connect with people. I've always been interested in making new friends and learning about different cultures. English is a language that connects people from different backgrounds. I wanted to be able to chat with people online, join international communities, and learn new things from others. When you know English, you can talk to people from all over the world and learn so much from them. At first, it felt like a big challenge. I thought, can I really do this? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that learning English was not just an option. It was something I needed to do if I wanted to grow and achieve my dreams. So, I made a decision. I told myself, no matter how difficult it is, I will learn English. I will practice every day and improve step by step. So that's why I wanted to learn English. It wasn't just for fun. It was for my future, my dreams, and my personal growth. And if you're watching this and you also want to learn English, remember this. You have your own reasons, and those reasons will keep you motivated no matter how hard it seems at first. If you stay consistent, you will improve. Now, let me tell you how I started learning English and the first steps I took on my journey. When I first decided to learn English, I had no idea where to start. I didn't know which method was best, what resources to use, or how to stay motivated. It felt a little overwhelming at first because there were so many options, books, videos, apps, websites, and more. I kept asking myself, where do I begin? At that time, I didn't have much money to spend on expensive courses, so I had to rely on free or low-cost resources. The first thing I did was go to the internet, and search for, how to learn English by yourself. I found a lot of suggestions, but I didn't know which ones would actually work for me. I decided to try everything one by one and see what helped me the most. The first thing I tried was books. I thought, books are a great way to learn, so I went to the library and borrowed a few basic English grammar books and dictionaries. I started with simple things, learning basic words, common phrases, and some grammar rules. But to be honest, it was really hard at first. The books were full of rules and exercises, and sometimes I felt bored or confused. Some words were too difficult, and I had to check the dictionary again and again. One of the biggest challenges with books was staying motivated. Studying alone with books can feel a bit lonely, and I often felt like I wasn't making much progress. But I told myself, it's okay, every small step counts. I started reading short stories for beginners because they were easier to understand and more interesting than grammar books. This helped me build my vocabulary and understand sentence structures better. After struggling with books, I decided to try something more fun, videos and movies. I started watching English movies with subtitles. At first, I only watched movies with subtitles in my native language, but later I switched to English subtitles. It was difficult at first because people spoke too fast, and I couldn't catch every word, but I didn't give up. I paused the video, wrote down new words, and repeated the sentences to practice pronunciation. One of my favorite things to watch was YouTube videos. There are so many channels that teach English in a fun and simple way. I found channels where teachers explained grammar in easy words and also channels with everyday conversations. Watching real conversations helped me a lot because I could hear how people actually speak English in daily life. The biggest challenge with videos was understanding fast speech. Native speakers talk quickly, and they use slang and idioms that I didn't know. Sometimes I felt frustrated because I couldn't understand everything. But I reminded myself that it was normal to feel this way in the beginning. I focused on improving little by little, and with time, I could understand more and more. Another thing that helped me a lot was using mobile apps. I found some great apps for learning vocabulary and practicing grammar. Apps made learning more interactive and fun. I could practice for 10 or 15 minutes every day, and it felt like playing a game rather than studying. One of my favorite features in these apps was the word of the day. Every day, I learned a new word and tried to use it in my sentences. However, using apps also had challenges. Sometimes, I relied too much on them and forgot to practice speaking. The apps were great for vocabulary and grammar, but they couldn't help me practice real conversations. I realized that learning English is not just about memorizing words, it's also about using them in real life. One of the biggest challenges I faced was speaking. Since I was learning alone, I didn't have anyone to practice with. I was afraid of making mistakes and felt shy when trying to speak English. At first, I just practiced speaking to myself in front of the mirror. I used to introduce myself, talk about my day, and describe things around me. It felt a little silly, but it actually helped me gain confidence. Later, I started talking to myself in my head throughout the day. When I was walking, I would describe things I saw in English. For example, I would say, "This is a red car," or "I am going to the store." This simple habit helped me think in English and made speaking easier over time. Another important step I took was writing. I kept a small notebook where I wrote down new words and phrases every day. I also wrote short paragraphs about my day, my thoughts, and my goals. Writing helped me remember new words and practice grammar in a natural way. At first, my writing was full of mistakes, but I didn't worry about it. I focused on expressing myself, and I slowly improved over time. I started writing longer texts and even tried writing emails in English. Of course, learning English alone wasn't easy. I faced many challenges along the way. Sometimes, I felt frustrated because I wasn't improving as fast as I wanted. There were days when I felt like giving up because learning a new language takes time and effort. One of the hardest things was staying consistent. At the beginning, I was very excited, but after a few weeks, I started losing motivation. Some days, I didn't feel like studying, and I thought, maybe I'll learn later. But I knew that if I stopped, I would forget everything I had learned. So, I made a study schedule and tried to practice English for at least 30 minutes every day. Another challenge was pronunciation. Some English sounds were very different from my native language, and I struggled to say certain words correctly. I practiced by listening to native speakers and repeating after them. It was difficult, but I kept going because I knew that practice makes perfect. Despite all the challenges, I found ways to stay motivated. I reminded myself why I wanted to learn English: to improve my life, to travel, and to have better opportunities. I also celebrated small achievements, like understanding a full sentence in a movie or having a short conversation in English. I also followed motivational stories of other people who learned English alone. Seeing their success made me believe that I could do it too. So, those were my first steps in learning English. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely worth it. If you are starting your English learning journey, remember that the beginning can be hard, but if you stay consistent and keep practicing, you will improve step by step. In the next part, I will tell you how I practiced English every day and what methods helped me the most. When I first started learning English, I knew that practicing every day was the most important thing. I told myself, if I practice a little bit every day, I will improve step by step. But it wasn't always easy. Some days, I felt motivated and excited, but other days, I felt tired or lazy. However, I learned that consistency is the key to success. Even when I didn't feel like studying, I tried to do something small, maybe listening to a song or reading a short article. At the beginning, I didn't have a fixed schedule, and that made it difficult to stay consistent. So, I decided to create a simple daily routine that included different activities, like reading, listening, speaking, and writing. I divided my time into short sessions so that I wouldn't feel overwhelmed. Let me share with you what my daily routine looked like and how I practiced each skill. In the morning, I tried to start my day with some English exposure. One of my favorite things to do was listening to English podcasts while having breakfast or getting ready for the day. I found beginner-friendly podcasts that used simple words and slow speech. At first, I couldn't understand everything, but I didn't let that stop me. I focused on catching the main idea, and over time, my listening skills improved. After listening, I practiced speaking. Since I didn't have anyone to talk to, I used a simple method: I talked to myself. Yes, I know it sounds funny, but it really helped me. I stood in front of the mirror and spoke about my plans for the day. I would say things like, "Today, I will go to the market and buy some vegetables," or "I have a lot of work to do today." Talking to myself helped me think in English and improve my pronunciation. Another thing I did in the morning was shadowing. Shadowing is a technique where you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat what they say at the same time. I used to watch short English videos and repeat after the speaker. It was difficult at first because they spoke quickly, but I kept trying. This helped me improve my pronunciation and speaking rhythm. In the afternoon, I focused more on reading and writing. I started with simple reading materials like children's books and beginner-level articles. I found websites that had news written in easy English. Reading helped me learn new words and understand sentence structure better. I made a habit of reading at least one short story or article every day. Whenever I found a new word, I wrote it down in my notebook. I didn't just write the word, I also wrote an example sentence to remember how to use it. For example, if I learned the word excited, I would write "I am excited to learn English." This method helped me remember words better. Writing was another important part of my daily practice. Every day, I wrote a short paragraph about my life. I wrote about my daily activities, my thoughts, and my goals. Writing helped me organize my thoughts in English and practice grammar. Sometimes, I used language learning apps to check my writing and correct my mistakes. One of the biggest challenges I faced with writing was grammar. English grammar has many rules, and sometimes they were confusing. To improve my grammar, I started using grammar apps and watching YouTube lessons on specific topics like tenses, prepositions, and sentence structure. I didn't try to learn everything at once. Instead, I focused on one grammar rule at a time. In the evening, I relaxed a bit but still practiced English in a fun way. I watched English movies or TV shows with subtitles. Watching movies was one of my favorite ways to learn because it didn't feel like studying. I tried to watch movies with simple dialogues and repeated scenes that I didn't understand. One thing I did was choose a short scene from a movie and watch it several times. First, I watched it with subtitles, then without subtitles. I tried to repeat the sentences and act like the characters. This not only improved my listening, but also my speaking skills. Before going to bed, I reviewed what I had learned during the day. I went through my notebook and revised new words and grammar points. I also practiced pronunciation by reading aloud. Reading out loud helped me improve my speaking fluency and confidence. On weekends, I tried to do different activities to keep learning interesting. Sometimes, I watched travel vlogs or cooking videos in English to learn new vocabulary. Other times, I played English learning games online. One weekend, I decided to challenge myself by writing an email in English to a friend who was also learning English. It was a great way to practice writing in a real situation. I also joined online language forums where I could ask questions and read discussions in English. Practicing every day was not always easy. Sometimes, I felt stuck, especially when I didn't see quick results. I remember feeling frustrated when I couldn't understand native speakers or when I made the same mistakes again and again. But I reminded myself that learning a language is a journey, and progress takes time. One strategy that helped me stay motivated was tracking my progress. I made a small calendar and marked each day that I practiced English. Seeing the marks on the calendar made me feel proud and motivated me to continue. Another challenge I faced was finding the right balance. Sometimes, I focused too much on one skill, like listening, and forgot about other skills like writing or speaking. I realized that a good routine should include all aspects of the language: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. If you want to improve your English, my advice is to practice a little bit every day. You don't have to study for hours, just 15 to 30 minutes a day can make a big difference. Try to include different activities in your routine so that you don't get bored. Find things you enjoy, like watching movies, reading interesting articles, or listening to music in English. The more fun you have, the easier it will be to stay motivated. And most importantly, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning, and every mistake helps you improve. So that's how I practiced English every day. It wasn't always easy, but it was definitely worth it. In the next part, I'll share the mistakes I made and what I learned from them. Alright, everyone, let me be honest with you. When I started learning English, I made a lot of mistakes. And you know what? That's completely normal. Mistakes are part of the learning process, and without them, I wouldn't have improved. But at the time, I didn't realize this. I used to feel frustrated and even embarrassed when I made mistakes. I thought, what if people laugh at me? What if I never get better? But over time, I learned that making mistakes is actually a good thing because they help us grow. So today, I want to share some of the biggest mistakes I made when learning English. Hopefully, you can learn from them and avoid making the same ones. And remember, if you're making mistakes, it means you're trying, and that's what matters. One of the first mistakes I made was spending too much time on grammar. I thought that if I memorized all the grammar rules, I would be able to speak English perfectly. I studied grammar books, did exercises, and tried to learn everything about tenses, prepositions, and sentence structure. But when it came to speaking, I couldn't say anything. The problem was that I was afraid of making grammar mistakes, so I would hesitate before speaking. I would think, should I say, I have been, or I had been? Is this the right tense? And in the end, I didn't say anything at all. I realized that focusing too much on grammar was actually slowing me down. What I learned from this mistake is that grammar is important, but it's not everything. You don't need to know all the rules before you start speaking. It's okay to make mistakes because with practice, you will naturally improve over time. Instead of focusing only on grammar, try to learn phrases and practice speaking as much as possible. Another big mistake I made was being too afraid to speak English. I thought that if I made mistakes, people would laugh at me or judge me, so I avoided speaking for a long time. Even when I had the chance to talk to someone in English, I stayed quiet. I kept waiting until I felt ready. But the truth is, you will never feel completely ready. One day, I realized that my fear was holding me back. I told myself, if I want to get better, I need to start speaking, even if I make mistakes. So I started small. I practiced speaking alone at home, then I tried talking to myself in my head throughout the day. Eventually, I found online language exchange partners and started speaking with real people. What I learned is that mistakes are normal when speaking a new language. Nobody is perfect, and most people are kind and understanding. The more you speak, the more confident you become. So don't be afraid, just start speaking, even if it's not perfect at first. I thought that reading and writing were enough to learn English. I spent hours reading books and writing sentences, but when I tried to watch a movie or talk to a native speaker, I couldn't understand anything. Their speech sounded too fast, and I felt lost. I realized that I had been neglecting my listening skills. English sounds very different from how it looks in writing. Many words are pronounced differently, and native speakers use contractions and slang that I wasn't familiar with. To fix this mistake, I started listening to English every day. I listened to podcasts, watched YouTube videos, and even listened to English songs. At first, it was hard, but over time, I got better. I also learned a great tip: don't try to understand every single word. Focus on the general meaning. So, if you're learning English, make sure to include listening practice in your routine. The more you listen, the more familiar the language will become to you. Another mistake I made was trying to memorize too many words at once. I thought that if I knew a lot of vocabulary, I would be fluent. So, I made long lists of words and tried to memorize them every day. But guess what? I forgot most of them after a few days. I realized that learning words without context doesn't help much. Instead of memorizing random words, I started learning vocabulary through sentences and real-life situations. For example, instead of just learning the word delicious, I learned the phrase "this food is delicious." This way, I knew how to use the word naturally in conversation. My advice: don't worry about learning thousands of words. Focus on useful words and phrases that you can actually use in daily life. Quality is better than quantity. At one point, I made the mistake of comparing myself to other learners. I would see people speaking English fluently and think, why can't I speak like them? Am I not smart enough? I felt discouraged and thought about giving up. But later, I realized that everyone learns at their own pace. Some people learn faster, while others take more time, and that's okay. Comparing yourself to others will only make you feel frustrated. The important thing is to focus on your progress and celebrate small improvements. If you're learning English, don't compare yourself to others. Instead, compare yourself to where you were yesterday. If you can say one more sentence today than you could last week, that's progress. In the beginning, I was very excited to learn English. I studied for hours every day, but after a few weeks, I got tired and stopped for a while. Then, I forgot many things I had learned. I realized that studying a lot in one day and then stopping for a long time was not a good idea. Consistency is the key. Even if you only practice for 10 to 15 minutes every day, it's better than studying for hours once a week. I started making a daily routine and sticking to it, even on busy days. If you want to improve your English, try to practice every day, even if it's just a little. If you are learning English, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are not bad, they are proof that you are learning. Every time you make a mistake, you have an opportunity to improve. Instead of feeling bad about mistakes, learn from them. Here's what I want you to remember. 1. Don't focus too much on grammar, speak as much as you can. 2. Don't be afraid of making mistakes when speaking. 3. Practice listening every day, it's just as important as speaking. 4. Learn vocabulary in context, not just individual words. 5. Don't compare yourself to others, focus on your own progress. 6. Be consistent, practice a little every day. Learning a language takes time, and you will make mistakes along the way. But if you keep going and don't give up, you will get better. So don't be afraid to try, speak, and enjoy the journey. In the next part, I'll share what helped me the most in learning English and how you can use the same strategies. Stay with me. Alright, so now I want to share with you the things that helped me the most when I was learning English. You see, when you're learning alone, it's easy to feel lost. There are so many methods and resources available, and I tried almost everything. Some worked well, and some didn't. But over time, I found a few things that really made a difference in my learning journey. I hope that by sharing them, you can find what works best for you, too. One of the biggest things that helped me improve was surrounding myself with English every single day. I tried to make English a part of my daily life, even when I wasn't studying. Instead of just thinking about English as a subject to learn, I made it a part of my routine. For example, I changed the language on my phone and social media apps to English. It was a small change, but it helped me see and use English naturally throughout the day. I also followed English-speaking influencers on Instagram and watched their stories daily. Seeing real people speak English helped me learn useful expressions and slang that I wouldn't find in textbooks. YouTube was one of my best friends during my learning journey. There are so many amazing English learning channels that provide free lessons on grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and even cultural topics. I watched videos almost every day, and I found that visual learning helped me remember things better. Real-life conversations, watching videos where native speakers talked in a natural way helped me understand how English is spoken in real situations. Storytelling videos, I enjoyed watching people share their life stories in English. It helped me learn new words and sentence structures. Educational channels, channels that focused on common mistakes, pronunciation tips, and grammar explanations, were really helpful. What I learned is that watching videos is great, but you need to be an active learner. Instead of just watching passively, I took notes, repeated phrases, and even paused the video to practice saying sentences out loud. Podcasts and audiobooks were a game changer for me. I used to think that listening was difficult because people spoke too fast, but I discovered that there are podcasts made especially for English learners. I listened to them while walking, cooking, or even lying in bed. Some podcasts speak slowly and clearly, and they explain difficult words. Listening every day helped me get used to the rhythm of the language and improve my pronunciation without even realizing it. Audiobooks were also great because I could follow along with the text while listening to the pronunciation. Movies and TV shows were not just entertainment for me, they were an important part of my learning process. In the beginning, I watched with subtitles in my native language, but later I switched to English subtitles. This helped me connect the spoken words with their meanings. One thing that really helped was watching the same episode or movie more than once. The first time, I watched for enjoyment, and the second time, I focused on the language. I also used a technique called pause and repeat to practice my speaking by repeating short phrases from the dialogues. Since I didn't have a teacher or native speakers around me, I had to find creative ways to practice speaking. I often spoke to myself out loud, describing my day, talking about my plans, or practicing conversations I might have in real life. It felt strange at first, but it really helped me gain confidence. Later, I discovered language exchange apps, where I could chat with real people around the world who were also learning English. Talking with native speakers and other learners helped me get real-world practice without leaving my home. Now, speaking English was probably the most challenging part of my journey. When you learn alone, you don't always have people to practice with, and it can feel scary to start speaking. But over time, I found some useful methods that helped me become more comfortable and confident in speaking English. One of the simplest and most effective ways I improved my speaking skills was by talking to myself in English. I would stand in front of the mirror and have small conversations with myself. I would ask questions like, "What are your plans for today?" and then answer them. I also describe my surroundings, like I am in my room and I can see a chair, a table, and a book. This helped me think in English without translating from my native language. At first, I was afraid to hear my own voice in English, but I started recording myself speaking about different topics. I would pick a simple topic, like my favorite hobby, and talk for a few minutes. Then, I listened to the recording and compared it to native speakers. Recording my voice helped me notice my pronunciation mistakes and improve them over time. I also tracked my progress and felt happy when I heard how much better I sounded. After a few months, when I felt a little more confident, I started using online platforms to find language partners. Talking to real people helped me learn how to have natural conversations and use everyday expressions. It also helped me overcome my fear of speaking with others. One tip I learned was to prepare some questions and topics before the conversation. This way, I never ran out of things to say. Shadowing is a technique where you listen to a native speaker and repeat what they say immediately. I used to watch interviews or listen to podcasts and try to copy the way they spoke. This helped me improve my pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. I did this with subtitles at first and then without subtitles when I felt more confident. It's a great way to sound more natural when speaking English. Another thing that really helped my speaking skills was learning whole phrases instead of just individual words. For example, instead of just learning the word busy, I learned phrases like, "I've been really busy lately," or "I'm too busy to go out." Learning phrases made it easier for me to speak fluently because I didn't have to think about grammar too much. At first, I thought I needed to speak fast to sound fluent, but I realized that speaking slowly and clearly is more important. I focused on pronouncing words correctly and forming clear sentences instead of rushing. Over time, my speaking speed naturally improved as I became more comfortable with the language. If you want to improve your speaking skills, don't be afraid to make mistakes. The more you speak, the better you'll get. Start by talking to yourself, recording your voice, and practicing with others when you feel ready. And remember, confidence comes with practice. The more you expose yourself to English, the easier it will become. Keep going and don't give up. In the next part, I'll share how I stayed motivated throughout my English learning journey. Stay tuned.